Hey, it's Steve Sparky, Fifer 1250 AM, The Fan here in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, along with our guys, Dwight Albrecht, a spare time pro shop operator over there in New Berlin Bowl, and our guy, Phil Brylow. Check him out, $2 Phil, and follow him on Twitter at Brew City Bowling. And Phil, you were at the PBA Players Championship this last weekend that everybody got to watch the semifinals on FS1 on Saturday, and then got to watch the championship, a best of 5, which ended up only being 3 games on Big Daddy on Fox, which always is a good thing. Phil termed the coined it the Big Daddy Fox last week. I'm just going to roll with it now the rest of the year. Okay, Phil Brylow. So tell me about the energy. Tell me about the excitement level of the fans that were there, the bowlers, and how that whole thing went over the weekend.
Yeah, the energy level was definitely better than the weekend before. I think on Saturday, definitely having Bill O'Neill in the semifinals really helped a lot. Lots of fan support there, a bigger crowd. They had to bring in extra seating behind the left lane. Everybody could see it was all filled in. Yeah, the crowd was great. It was interesting on Saturday with the way the matches turned out. And you couldn't ask for a better Saturday. I think Sunday, if they could get that one back for the format, I think Tom Clark would definitely do that. But it's tough. It's tough filling something for 2 hours. I mean, it's you get a race to 5. It's an odd number of games, and something can happen, and you can't run that far over. And if you were going to do the original format with 2 races to 2, then it's convoluted, and how are you going to follow it on the scoreboard? So it was kind of a tough situation for what to do on the finals. You don't think somebody's going to get swept at the PBA level, 3-0 that very often. If you go back and look even at the days of, bracket matches, that type of thing, it doesn't happen very often that it's a 3-0 sweep. And unfortunately, that's what happened. So, but lots of people talking about Kevin McCune all weekend long.
And they should be talking about Kevin McCune. Let's go back. And we'll start with the semifinals on Saturday, then move forward from there. But quickly, before we do that, can I just say it was so nice having Rob Stone back. Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, you could see Randy Peterson was elated, Dwight. I was elated having Rob Stone back as play-by-play guy.
Yes, that's the first thing I said. Rob Stone is back.
Yep. Very exciting.
Yes, they just work so good together.
Yep.
They just feed off each other so well. They can tell they're buddies.
We were watching last night. I recorded it because we went to the Brewers game here in Milwaukee, American Family Field, watched the Brewers beat the Royals. So I was watching the replay of the Big Daddy broadcast last night. So Kay's on her phone, whatever, while I'm watching it. And Rob Stone's just going crazy over stuff. And she just starts chuckling and laughing. I was like, you like him? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, he brings some excitement to this.
Yes.
Where it got her to look up to see what was going on because he was freaking out. And that is what, with all due respect, the rest of these guys that they bring in, they don't necessarily have that energy necessarily that Rob has. And not only does he have the energy, but different from when he started, now he's starting to get the knowledge, Phil. And now he's really becoming more of a complete play-by-play guy. When he first started, he was a soccer dude coming over trying to figure this out and trying to find his way. Now he knows the guys. He knows the ball reps. He knows the players. He has the relationships. Now he's got the knowledge to go along with the entertainment factor, Phil.
Well, and it's just a matter of he knows when to just let Randy go. And it kind of happened on Saturday a bit with they were talking about when Randy's phone blew up with everybody telling him what they soaked the bowling balls in back in the 70s.
And that was on the Spare Time Bowling Show last week. I believe we talked about that, wasn't it? Or 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about that. And it's just kind of funny where I was watching the 5% of the diehards that have, bowling history that follow it and stuff like that. We're just couldn't believe that, Rob, they thought Rob was treating it as a joke. And it's like, no, that's just the way Rob is on air. He's just keeping it loose and trying to get more stuff out.
But Rob is a normal dude that didn't grow up in the bowling industry. So when you hear some clown is baking a bowling ball in an oven, what did you think he was going to do?
Yeah.
When Phil told me, I thought it was stupid. I mean, again, guys, listen. If you're a diehard bowler and you know the history and all of that, you're like, dude, settle down. It's not a big deal. Right. We all have all known about this. He's not that guy. So this is all new information, and it sounds nuts. I promise you. If you went to, well, nobody's at the malls anymore, but when they were at the malls, if you went to your local mall and walked around and said, hey, do you bake your bowling ball? They'd look at you sideways like, what the hell are you talking about? And then soaking it in something that's like illegal. Well, now, back then they could soak it in whatever. Yeah, of course he's going to go crazy. And the diehards need to get over themselves because that whole process of what McCune was doing back in the day, you know, we're talking about 40 years ago or whatever, is completely crazy now when you think about it.
I was kind of surprised that Randy didn't remember it initially and then was getting text messages from he called out Justin Wyman on the chemical, and I knew right away it was MEK.
Because you're a nerd.
Right.
That's
I'm at 5%. Right.
And Randy isn't, well, maybe he is, but he's not to your level.
Right.
And they couldn't even pronounce the damn thing.
Right. Methyl ketone.
What did you say?
Methyl ethyl ketone.
Spell
MEK. You want me to spell it? I don't have the can in front of me. I know that they sell it at Menards still.
Oh my God. Do not go into Menards and buy this crap for your bowling ball people.
Right.
But the same 5%, the same 5% of the people that, you know, complained about the whole Rob going on the tangents of it, that's the same 5% of the people that didn't like when how we roll was on and how they didn't portray, you know, they had Pete Holmes, who didn't have bowling for him and all the other, you know, it's the same thing. There's always 5% of the crowd that just seems like they're never going to be happy with how bowling's represented unless it's, you know, Chris Schenkel era. Right.
In which case, as a bowling industry, you ignore those 5% then. And they don't count. Like, I'm sorry to y'all that love this and are into and want it to be the 70s again, but y'all don't count. You're old. We're moving on. Like, you have to adjust and advance and figure out how do you get the younger audience back in. That's the job of the commissioner, Tom Clark. And I think he's trying everything, trying to figure out how to get that next wave of people to follow the sport. How do you get them in? I will say this. I said it last week. I'll say it again. If we know anything about young people, they do not want to sit very long and watch anything. Right. They don't want to watch games. They'll see the highlights on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. They're not trying to sit there and watch a 3-hour game. Right. And they're surely not going to sit and watch 2 hours of bowling. So while I get down with it, 2 hours, fine. I think it's too long. Like I've said before. And I was interested on when McCune swept them, Buttriff, on Sunday. I was like, okay, so what's the plan now? So how are we going to fill? I figured they had some pre-produced package that they were going to run. Right. Then I thought to myself, well, if you run a pre-produced package, what then does that mean for the people that are sitting there that paid that money coming in expecting a 2-hour show? Right. So are they then screwed and they get to go home early and everybody else gets to watch a half-hour pre-produced package or 20 minutes or what's the plan? Yep. And the plan was, we were going sports talk and we're bringing McCune up and him and Peterson and Stone, we're going to have to talk. Fill time. And again, this is another situation where God bless the fact that you had these two gentlemen with McCune to stretch this out. Yes. Because people don't understand that when you do TV, it's a lot of it is scripted to a certain degree. You know your time frame, you have commercials, everything else, and it's all kind of in. What they did was not that because they didn't know if it was going 3 games or 4 games or 5 games, if they were going to have to talk or not have to talk. Right. So they had no idea. So you couldn't pre-produce a bunch of questions necessarily at the end of the day. So this literally was kind of like what I did back in the day, which is you sit down in front of a microphone and you go and you kind of have an idea, or like a post-game show after a Bucks game, or a post-game show after the Brewer game, like Tim Allen did on the Fan for so many years, or Gary Ellerson after Packer games. That's what it was. You had to react and then talk to the dude. I don't know. I thought they did a nice job.
They did. And after the match was over, I looked at my wife and I'm like, now they have to fill. I'm thinking 15 minutes a game. So now I'm thinking a half hour, they're going to have to fill a half hour. And we've talked about this on the show with the formats and how you can get into trouble if a bowler sweeps the opponent.
It's still better than a roll off with 2 frames. Yeah. Like that's still dumb. I don't care what y'all say. Right. We watched it again this weekend. It happened again. I hate it. I'll always hate it. Go ahead.
Right. And I just thought to myself, I looked at my wife and I'm just like, okay, now what do they do? That's going to be the big thing. I thought they handled it great. The only thing I've been dying to talk to Phil about this is I would have loved to seen them bring Anthony Simonson back in and ask them what the conversation was between him and Tom Clark, because they made a big deal out of it.
Peterson talking about ninjutsu when he was talking to the MMA dude or whatever on the side, Simonson and the MMA dude. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they were him and Tom Clark were talking, and then they show him shaking hands, and you could clearly see that Simonson was perturbed about something during the show. Was wondering if Phil caught any of that out there live.
It's so much stuff that was going for a few frames. I was on the outside looking in. The only thing I heard a little bit was about how, and Simonson mentioned in the press conference after, where they weren't happy that they had another tournament to go bowl in the middle of a tournament, a major. They all left last Sunday. They went down to Delaware. They had the Rotholman doubles, and then they had to adjust to 2 more different conditions, and then had to get back to, the 4 guys had to get back to New Jersey to bowl the TV finals. And Simon he wasn't happy with it. You bowl all week in a different condition, then you come back and need to readjust. And he just wasn't happy about having to do that. And that was the one part of the conversation I walked in on. And then I just kind of walked away from it just because. Guys.
Listen, yeah. I want to make this very clear. And I don't want to be a jerk to Simonson. And I don't want to be a jerk to the rest of these guys. You don't have an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have an alternative.
Right.
You don't. I mean, NBA players, you don't like to go play in Europe. You're not going to make as much money. You'll still make millions. No question. You'll still make a good money. But there's an alternative, right? The World Bowling Tour. Sure. Go ahead. But it's not going to be this.
Right.
It's not going to be the PBA Tour, right? Yeah. This is what this is. Major League Baseball. You can go play in Japan, right? There's places you can go. The NFL, there is no alternative. There is nothing. So if you don't like the way Roger Goodell does it, take your little butt and get to stepping. Maybe the XFL will take you. Nobody's going to watch, but I'm sure they'll take you. USFL, 5 people watching. They'll take you. But it's not the NFL. They are king right now in this industry. There is no competition.
Yes.
You can cry and complain to your little heart's content. But at the end of the day, whatever Tom Clark decides, that's what's going on, folks. There's nothing else you can do about it. You can get mad and throw a temper tantrum or do whatever you want to do, but you're not going anywhere because there's nowhere for you to go. And y'all don't make enough money to pick up and just retire and go, I'm good. See you later.
Yes.
Without TV, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
Nothing. So, I mean, they're stuck as bowlers. They're stuck. I mean, the only other option is, okay, we're going to form a union and then we're going to hold out. Okay. Form a union and hold out. You know how broke y'all are going to be? Y'all are going to be working at Wendy's and hanging out at the different areas in town, giving me a Frosty when I come see you, because there going to be nothing else for y'all to do while you're holding out for more money from Tom Clark and the PBA Tour. Yes. So they're screwed. At the end of the day, y'all are screwed. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. That's what actually Kyle Troop did before he got to the tour. He was a manager at Wendy's. So.
Perfect. I know people. We can get him a job.
Yeah, but you go back to the late 90s where some of the guys on tour weren't happy with what's going on. So they had their little touring players association, and they basically sued themselves because back then the PBA was a nonprofit. They all had a piece of the action, and they didn't like some of the rules, so they sued themselves. How well did that work out for them? Because they all, whatever pensions and 401ks and all that, all of a sudden, after it was all done, PBA's $5 million in the red, and that's when it got sold to the Microsoft guys. I mean, they almost sold themselves, they almost, sued themselves into oblivion that many years ago. And until none of the challenging programs, nobody's ever tried to start anything against the PBA except the Generations Tour back in the early 2000s, which was for the senior guys, and that lasted barely a year.
Yeah,
and that went away. So it's you want your option. Here it is. Here's the PBA. That's your option.
And the other thing that Simonson and the rest of these people have to understand, and we don't know where the TV contract is. I haven't seen anything from the PBA, whether or not there's new deals going to be done on Fox or not. Tom Clark has to figure out how to fill all available slots that Fox gave him.
Yes.
Period. One way or the other. If you have to drive or fly more than you want to, too bad, so sad.
Right.
If we lose Fox, it's not going to be pretty, folks.
Right.
It's not. If I got to go to CBS Sports Network, oh, buddy, not good.
Yep.
Bye-bye prize money.
Yep.
So y'all got to suck it up and figure it out. I'm sorry. Now, again, if this is McCune complaining, that's a little different.
Yeah.
He's 24 trying to figure out how to survive with money. Simonson's made money. I mean, it's not like Simonson's broke. The guy's winning majors all the time, winning tournaments. He's not broke. Don't come crying poor to me or whatever. Or, oh, my life's so difficult. I have to bowl on TV this week, and I was in the doubles. I promise you, dude, there are dudes waiting in the wings. I would say, tell you what, dude, you don't got to be on TV. I'll take your spot on TV. I'll go do doubles. I'll come back. I'll do some more TV. Make that check. I'll take that check.
Yeah.
I'll sacrifice with the car and the airfare and everything else. If I'm Tom Clark, that's what I'm telling him. Dude, if you don't want to be here, you don't got to be here. I'll find somebody else to take your spot. We'll move on. Like, you got to understand. You have to understand the room that you're in. Yes. And sometimes these guys think they're bigger than they actually are when they're not.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In his defense, it is tough to go from one format and one part of the lane condition where I saw a small little smignet on social media with him playing fourth arrow swing and then having to go back to the right when he gets back over to Jersey for the championship show. I get that. But you were just on that show a week ago, and you knew what worked then. You should have just been able to go right back to what was working a week ago. I think he said a little later that the lanes were a little different than the last time that they bowled. But again, like Sparky said, that's your job. You have to figure it out fast. And he just wasn't able to figure it out. He was making ball choices one shot after another.
Well, they're always different from round to round. I mean, you can have that machine set to the same thing every time, and something something a little bit different in what oil is in there or the temperature of the lane or all that other stuff. It doesn't take much to send a pattern a little more haywire than it was the round before, or maybe a little easier than it was the round before. It's not a science, it's an art.
Yes.
For lane maintenance. As close as you can get, it's never the same round around, around, around. But these guys are getting paid to make those adjustments. And
this is the other thing. If I'm Tom Clark, because now I'm all fired up when I heard this. This is the other thing. I'll tell you what. We'll go back to World Series of Bowling out at South Point, where Dwight just was. Vegas stories coming. Stay tuned. So we'll go back and we'll record 6 TV shows, 8 TV shows, whatever. And then you can sit at home and watch them on TV, have all the spare time that you want, pun intended, all you want, right? At the end of the day, and not make nearly as much money because TV revenue is not going to be there. We're not going to be on Live Fox anymore. We're going to be going against the NFL on ESPN again. We'll go back to doing it the way it was. So you're not inconvenienced, Anthony, to go back and forth. Like, I would have lost my damn mind had anybody on that tour came at me complaining about, the lane conditions I have to adjust to between here and there. I got to go back and forth. When you're the dude on TV, one of the best dudes making the most money, and you're get out of here, man. Just get to stepping. Like, I don't got time for this. Like, I got to figure out how I'm going to promote Kevin McCune for the next week to get word out about him. I don't know. That's just that stuff. Tom Clark is a saint because I wouldn't have the patience to deal with it. I wouldn't. Like, understand who the hell you are and where you are and move on. You are not Tom Brady, dude. You are not Giannis. Nobody gives a damn what y'all think at this point. You are not at that level. You are great in the sport. Yes. Are you going to be a Hall of Famer in the sport? Yes, you're going to be a Hall of Famer in the sport of bowling. But we are not at their level for me to have to listen to this. Like, that's just not what it is. We're still trying to ascend and climb to relevance at this point. Yeah. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to semifinals. Sorry, y'all. That was 18 minutes without reading any scores. Last week, we didn't read any scores. Oh, we're ahead of the game. And again, if you're just tuning in, you can download the Spare Time Bowling Show right there on your Odyssey app or anywhere you download your favorite podcast at. And, of course, from time to time, I'll throw up some of these on the YouTube Odyssey Sports page where we are currently streaming live, as well as on the 1250 Twitter account, as well as at Sparky Radio Twitter account as well. Okay, so semifinals, these were Saturday, and this is how it all went. McCune gets Simonson. We were just talking about Anthony Simonson, and McCune does his deal: 227 to 171, 225 to 196. Now, clearly, that is part of the reason why Simonson was not happy.
Of course,
if Simonson beats McCune both games and he's there, probably not complaining. Probably not that big of a deal. I'm fine. If he wins it, I bet you never even brings it up to Tom that he had to go through this whole rigmarole, right? You shh, be quiet. It's fine. Shh. But because he loses, now it's a big damn deal because he lost to McCune.
Right.
Listen, y'all, it's nothing to be embarrassed by. He slayed both Hackett brothers. McCune did.
Yes.
The previous week, and he slayed both of them, right? Yeah. And now he slayed you. The dude was on it. And as they pointed out on the broadcast, Phil, I don't want to say he got lucky, but to a degree, the guys who were bowling, none of them were really bowling all that well.
Yeah, they gave him a gift.
Right. Well, and he took advantage of it, and that's what you're supposed to do, Phil.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're getting away, if you're just sitting there throwing 2 teens and 2 20s, and why change the game plan? He just didn't make mistakes. He kept himself out of making the huge mistake in 95% of the cases. And that was the key to winning. All of a sudden, he let somebody else make the mistake, and he just stayed cool, calm, collected, and just kept filling frames. And that was the huge difference in every single game he had on TV. He didn't make that mental error that the other guys seemed to make at the wrong time.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Randy was 100% correct. He was never pushed any of his matches. I think if I remember all of them, I think only Zach Tackett in the second game of the first match pushed him a little bit. But of course he came out victorious on that one, but all the other matches were handed to him.
The other thing that I really enjoyed, we talked about it last week, as far as how hard he throws that ball. Right?
Yeah.
So he's throwing it when he's going 22, 23. Yeah. And then when he won on Sunday, he just whipped the ball down there, got it to over 29, trying to get to 30. Holy crap. I mean, you don't even understand how hard that is to do.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was last weekend, there was talk of him wanting to try and figure out how to slow it down. He did bring it down a little bit at the start of Sunday. He brought it down to like 21, I want to say. He was under 21. But then as the day went on, he started getting maybe a little bit more amped.
Adrenaline.
And it went back up to over 22 again.
Yeah.
As we were watching the show. When you're throwing it that hard, even with all the rev rate he has, Phil, it's taking away the ability for the ball to react maybe like you wanted to because you're throwing it so hard.
Well, that's what Surface on the ball's for. I mean, they made sure when he was talking to his ball reps, he made sure he had a couple of options going in. And especially in this case on the left lane, because he kept moving. He had a couple of the same bowling balls drilled, but a little different surfaces. And that way, when one ball was going to make the corner too hard, he could go to the other one. And you saw at the end of the second game, that's the choice they made when all of a sudden they're handing him another bowling ball.
Right.
He was always thinking that step ahead. And every step ahead he had was planned correctly. Did Simonson have that? Not really. It didn't look like it on Saturday. And we can get into Buttriff later, but it definitely looked like Buttriff had that game plan to get into that next level Sunday with the equipment when he's making the changes. So sometimes on that right lane, it was easier for McCune to just pick up the speed, as you said. All of a sudden, okay, instead of bumping left like you see, pick the speed up, keep on the same line, pick the speed up. And to be able to make those adjustments under the TV lights for $100,000 and a major title just goes to show that, I mean, basically the balls that kid's got. I mean, it's phenomenal to make that type of change on TV and be confident in it and then execute on top of it.
And then there's Jacob Buttriff.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Chuck Gardner on, who's a longtime ball rep for Brunswick for all those years. And we brought up, you can go back and listen to the podcast. It was a great podcast with Chuck Gardner a couple months ago, whatever it was.
Yep.
And he talked about, sometimes maybe the ball rep or the ball company will push you to use a different ball on TV that they want to see or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you and your bowler are trying to win a damn championship.
Yep.
Right? That you have to make the best decision of how to win. Everybody and their mama is using purple hammers. I get it. But as you saw in that semifinal, dude, it was not working. And he went 6 frames, whatever it was, 7 frames before he finally changed to that reactive resin.
Yes.
And then you come back Sunday and here it is again. I'm like, we're going to do this again. And the lane surface obviously was different and it was reacting differently. And when we get to Sunday, that was screwing him up, obviously, somewhat. I'll be honest. I don't think I would have went back to the purple hammer on Sunday after it was a struggle for me on Saturday.
Right.
Personally. That's me personally.
Yeah.
And he talked about Saturday after he beat Bill O'Neill that, well, they had a game plan. It wasn't working. So then they switched, right? Him and the ball rep. I'm curious. Like when we're watching it on TV, we see it's not working.
Right.
So as a ball rep, I'll go to Dwight first on this. Yep. Is it almost like a coach where you get to be so stubborn of, I know this is going to work. I know this is going to work. We're going to continue to do it until I know I'm right. And you just don't want to admit that maybe we screwed this up and we need to make a ball change here. That's what I don't understand. When Peterson and Rob Stone clearly see there's an issue on Sunday, we all know there's an issue and they don't make that change. And on Saturday, you could tell after two times on that left lane that he was having issues and they're going to need to do something. And they went back to that well again. I don't know. I don't get why they wait so long.
Right. Well, it could have been a totally different outcome if he didn't trip that 6-pin against O'Neal. O'Neal could have possibly stood up and then struck out. And it would have been
just rolled his eyes and looked up like, you gotta be kidding me. That's how I lose. Yeah.
Right. But getting back to Sunday, yes, they picked up on it. And Randy did make a comment that Parker Bone came in and tried to give him some advice about being able to get the ball farther to the left through the heads. But yeah, I mean, Randy picked up on it again, and he was 100% correct. He never moved zones. Randy kept talking about the zone. Strike Track, he said, showed that Buttroff only moved one board to the right. That's not enough. I mean, if obviously you don't have a look, you better either change equipment, go to something that's not hooking early enough, or move a zone. And a zone is 3, 4, 5 boards. And he did not do that. And I don't know. I even had a customer tweet me and said, how stupid is he that he doesn't move and he thinks it's going to come to him and work out.
Oh, wait a second. Time out. I saw that. I saw your Twitter exchange with whoever that was.
Chris. Yeah.
This is my thing. Maybe he told the ball rep to hell with you. I'm doing it my way. And if he did that, well, then, yeah, okay, fine. I agree with you. Then that wasn't very smart. But if the ball reps are saying, dude, you got to go. Like, we got to move. If this is going to work. And if he fought them on it, well, then he's got nobody to blame but himself. But if the ball reps themselves weren't telling him to move, then it wasn't just him. If they were both, or however many ball guys he had 2 guys, right? Wasn't Parker Bone one of them? And he had somebody else.
Danny Castillo.
Right.
Dino Castillo.
They were both there talking to him. If those guys didn't tell him to move and he didn't think of moving, then all 3 of them are to blame at the end of the day, right, Phil? I mean, it's not just him. The ball reps themselves didn't have a move.
Oh, no, during that first commercial break, Buttroff came over and I talked to Dino during the break, and he said, yeah, they knew that he had to make a ball change and move a little bit right in order to get the ball to pick up correctly. And that's the hard part sometimes on TV. Everybody's, there were 6 purple hammers on that rack between the 2 guys. McCune was joking around before the show and said, he goes, I can't believe I have more purple hammers here than Jacob. But it was the truth. And it's just sometimes, Jacob could make that ball change, but it was tough for Randy to pick up and Rob to pick up. Which purple hammer is he using? Unless you were right on top of that ball, you didn't know. And so it wasn't the ball rep that, told him, hey, stay in the ball or don't move. I mean, they had that talk during that first commercial break. It's just, he had error. And then it took him a while after that to just, okay, I can't move anymore. It's got to be moving back to reactive resin. And then the move finally got made.
So you were there, you were watching.
Yeah.
Versus us on TV. Obviously, I watched mine off the DVR.
Right. Yeah, me too.
So as you're watching it live, are you thinking to yourself, dude, he's got to move? Like, what is he doing? Like, is it going through your head as you're watching him, thinking he needs to be moving quicker than he was moving? Because even Buttroff, and I know we said we were going to talk about Saturday, Buttroff beat O'Neal 2-1. O'Neal 239, 175 over Buttroff. And then Buttroff came back through the, what was it? The first seven, I think it was.
Yep.
The next game, and looked like a completely different bowler. Beats O'Neal 264 to 256. I mean, O'Neal was in that thing to what, the 7th or 8th frame?
Yes.
He was right there. He had one spare, and he had the rest were strikes. He was hanging with them. I was like, oh my God, if Buttroff loses this to go home, that's crazy. But he wins 264 to 256. Then the stupid roll off. And Buttroff allows O'Neal to go first, says he can go first. And then he throws spare. And then at that point, Buttroff goes, well, okay, if I throw the next 3 strikes, it's over. And that's pretty much what he did. And it was done. And he advances to Sunday. Now that we're at Sunday there, we sped through Saturday. This is the thing. If you, Phil, are sitting there watching and going, man, he needs to move and go quick. And then you hear Buttroff after the show say, they were changing faster than I was moving. Pretty much, I couldn't keep up with how as fast as the lanes were changing.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree.
Okay, go.
He didn't move. They were changing faster than his adjustments. Then his adjustments were micro small. So I agree with Randy. I never saw him try anything different than what he did from Saturday's show. A little move here, a little move there. Again, that's the nice thing with Strike Track. It shows you if he did or he didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the numbers prove it.
But you got to remember, changing with your thing too, so much of the ball motion change is in the front 15, 20 feet of the lane because that ball starts to roll in the oil because of the because of the surface. And so Strike Tracks may not necessarily pick up how that change in axis rotation is happening all on top of that too. So if he's finally early friction, that ball's burning out, it doesn't show as much on the back end of the lane as it would on the front. And that's where the ball reps are keeping an eye on, watching the ball motion, because if it's not doing what it's supposed to in the front part of the lane, there's going to be obviously air in the back part of the lane.
So what about
I
this?
think that's part of the problem.
What about this? I think this is a fair question for people that have never bowled on TV. I've never bowled on TV.
Mm-hmm.
When do you take the big swing to make the big move? You want to move 5-6 boards. What, you're on TV? This is a championship match. We're playing best of 5. So when does he move? Because at some point it's got to be kind of like an NBA coach, right? Where, okay, I'm down 25 with 8 minutes to go. Starters out, we're done. I'm playing my bench. Probably not with 8 minutes to go. Say with 3 minutes to go. All right, in comes the bench. We give up. White flag. Because if you're going to take that swing and move that many boards, you're pretty much saying, if this doesn't work, this could be ugly, and I'm pretty much giving up on this match. So to me, that's a big gamble. Or you play it the way he played it and hope you can be just good enough to stay in this thing to the end.
He would have done what Anthony Simonson did when you are numerically out of the match, is when you start experimenting. So if that's the 7th frame or 8th frame, whatever the case may be, you start going to different looks and different balls to try to get it lined up for the next game based off of that format. What the format they had.
But look at the scores. I mean, it was 206 to 178. So what? He probably was out of that without looking at the box, probably like 7th or 8th frame, something like that.
Opens in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th.
Right. Yeah. So right after that 6th, he could have said, okay, I'm done.
Right.
I got to start getting ready for the next match and take those big swing moves and start dramatically making those moves, moving your feet.
Right. When the fans at home, like Chris, can see it on TV, and Chris doesn't know all those adjustments. He's just a fan at home watching the show. When they can pick that up, it's then pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
one thing you guys got to remember too is that before they went on air yesterday, they got 8 shots total on a fresh application. They get a half hour before, and then they re-oil for the show, and they get 8 shots. So let's just assume they split in half, 4 and 4.
Yeah, they can do it wherever they want. He could have done 8 on the right lane or 8 on the left lane. He can pick where he wants to do it. Peterson explained that on the broadcast.
Right. But these guys, in order to how they're getting the game plan, especially how they want to develop the lane for themselves, because they each had their own side. There's nothing there. So both guys kind of approached that first game as, if I lose it, I lose it, but I can make sure I'm setting up the lane my way. Talking with Jason Wojnar from Brunswick, one of the ball reps, he's like, these guys aren't going to see anything develop in the pattern until almost the end of game 1, because it's just them on the lanes developing it. It's not like the other shows where everybody's out there and you get a full game in and then you come on and you make the adjustments and then the top seed gets 10 shots. It's not all that where it's burned in already. It's fresh, and they're trying to develop it to make it good for the rest of the way. They knew it was a marathon, not a sprint. I kept hearing that out of the booth every time I'd walk near it. And that's what they were planning on. They were planning for the marathon, but Butcher's game plan, by the time it got to see that, hey, we're at mile 10, my pace is off and I need to make a big change in order to get into the finish line. And it just never happened for Butters from there. So everything that McCune did to develop his shot stayed and worked. And that's the big key right there, is because of the format, they treated how they were approaching that match and developing the lane pattern on their side of the lane differently.
This is the other thing. We talked about this for years with Rash, right? Mm-hmm. So the mental part of the game is so big, right? If you're right mentally, it's huge. And when you do your half-hour sports talk post-game show on Big Daddy Fox after this thing was done in 3 matches, and McCune's up there talking, and he was just being honest. It was like, halfway through the second game, I knew I had it, because he looked lost. And not only did he look lost, he looked like he couldn't figure it out. He was trying different balls and it wasn't working. And at that point I was like, I
got a good chance.
I pretty much got this.
Right.
It's over. And if McCune could read on Buttriff that he was that confused and could see that he was that confused and couldn't figure it out, imagine what was going through Buttriff's brain at that point.
Panic.
Right. If your opponent can tell you're lost, then you really, and once you get to that point, to pull yourself out of that, that's tough, Phil.
Buttriff walked offset at the end of game 2, and he walked offset and he went down to the practice pairs and he just went and he put his head in his hands and you could just tell there. He knew being down 2-0 with air, it was going to take a miracle to come back and win this thing. And he was facing that fact at that point, and he had his old coach, Jordan Asberg, who coaches at Arizona State University, down there trying to help him out and that kind of thing, trying to just right the mental side of the ship. And you could tell when Buttriff got back on the set, it was just, I need to win everything. And that is a huge position to try to get yourself out of.
As soon as he put his head in his hands, it was over.
Yeah. Yes. And then the shot in the sixth frame coming out of the commercial break where, you just kind of grab the ball and you kind of do what you can and
go through the motions.
I mean, he knew at that point in time, halfway through the third game, it was going to take a miracle. It would have been a Michael Hagen, Chris Barnes kind of thing, 50 pins. That would have been one of those miracles that happened once every 25 years. And it didn't happen. And McCune made sure it didn't happen.
Michael Hagen, I forgot about that match. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so let's talk about McCune for a second. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So McCune is a legacy type bowler. His dad bowled Eugene McCune, and then his grandpa, and all of that. Okay, fine. So after the match is done, he says, "I won up my dad because his dad never won a major. He's got a major. He's 24. More to come, more than likely.
Right.
We'll see." He's going to be known as, Nuke or whatever his nickname is. Right? Well, of course you do, because he throws it harder than anybody that we've seen.
I thought of Bull Durham also.
Yes, like Bull Durham, right? Yes. So his nickname is Nuke. Now, hey man, that's got some marketing stuff. With
it sure does.
If he gets going and can be really successful, you got something there.
Right.
He's got a personality. He seems overly honest. Big fan of that as a media guy. Like, please stay that way. Don't change. So that's good. I like all of that. How good do we think he might be?
Well, that's the thing. I kept thinking after Tom Clark made the comment, "A star is born."
Yeah. Oh my God. He said that.
Right.
And I cringed. I went,
right.
And then Kimberly Preston went, "Oh, couldn't have said it any better, Tom." I was like, "Oh, I could have said it better." Like that to me. And again, I'm over the top analyzing media guy, right?
Right.
I don't like that. I don't like being labeled after you do one thing. Right. You're the next Michael Jordan. Right. You did. Oh,
no
please
added
don't
pressure.
Put that on me. Please do not put that on me.
Right.
I mean, his dad was okay. He was decent.
Yeah.
You want a star? I mean, at 24 to say, "Dude, you're going to be our guy." Yeah. I mean, God bless him if he is. If Clark's right and he is the next guy that they're going to roll with, God bless him. I mean, if he knows, he knows. But that's some pressure when you say a star is born. That's woo.
Instantly my mind went to Phil Brylow. And my thought was
you think Phil's a star? I think he's a star.
Oh, yes, we know he's a
star.
Yes, local celebrity.
He glows when he walks around.
The comment I wanted to make, though, was that Phil has seen him out there for many years and would be the first one to know if he is a new star on the. I mean, he's paying his dues for now a year or two, I would think, Phil, right?
Well, I saw him win his first regional last year in Iowa. Did a live stream in conjunction with the PBA, and you could just tell that what he got through to win that first regional title. He was going to do well. Runner, he knew he was runner. It was just coming off the runner-up finish for the Rookie of the Year in 2022 that Santu got. And you can just tell he kind of forced the drive a little bit more. And then he goes out and he gets his first regional title. He wins the Rookie of the Year on the regional tour for the Midwest. And he's just kept working, but he doesn't take himself too seriously while he does it. And I think that's the key because he's not burning himself out. Santu's kind of the same way. You see Santu's personality, and it's very lighthearted when he's off the lanes, and he's not worried about too many things that happened that round before. If it was a bad round, sure, you analyze it, you learn from it, you move on. I honestly think that those two, Santu and McCune, are going to be the ones to watch in the next 4 or 5 years as guys like EJ and Belmo get older. Obviously, with Simo still being 26, he's in the prime of his physical career. And the whole talking to Randy after it was done, Randy used the term superstar too. He could be the next superstar. And it's just the way that it's not how they develop their physical game. It's about as good as they're both going to get. I mean, they still obviously work on things. We saw McCune throw a two-handed shot. They showed that. Did they show it on the Fox show on the telecast on Saturday? He's working on things like that in case it ever gets to that point where all of a sudden he needs a change in axis rotation or something like that. But it's the mental outlook that these two guys have that I think are going to give them the superstar potential.
The other thing we have to touch on, this whole baseball help me thing with McCune, found very interesting. I mean, listen, I don't know if Big Daddy Fox liked that half hour. I loved it because he just kept talking, and like you really got to get inside his brain talking about, when he was in high school, he came in, bases loaded, a 1-run game or whatever the case may be. Nobody out. He came in as a pitcher, gave up a run, got out of it. They were tied at 1. They go on to win the game 2-1. He closes it down at the end and just talked about, and now he said that game was on TV. He goes, I've had TV experience. I've been in high pressure situations.
Yep.
This is no different. I've been through it. I'm ready for this. I don't get nervous because I've been in it. That type of stuff there, providing he's telling us the truth. Yeah. That's big. We talk about the mental side. If he's saying, you're not going to shake me. I've been through this. I got it. That is a big advantage you have over your competitors who aren't used to maybe to this type of stuff.
I don't know if Phil saw it on TV, but they interviewed Eugene McCune about his son during the matches.
I fast forwarded through that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And that is exactly what he said, is that baseball game got him prepared and got him ready. Eugene made it almost sound like that baseball game was more pressure than what he's currently at on TV bowling.
Well, that's a team.
Somebody asked Eugene at the press conference about his memories being in bowling alleys as a kid with his dad and his grandpa. He's like, yeah, I was there, but it was all baseball for me back then. If it wouldn't have been for an arm injury, we might not have ever seen Kevin McCune on the lanes on the PBA tour.
Yeah, he was a catcher, then went to pitching.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for that arm injury, I mean, most of the stuff when he was growing up. And when you're on the mound in the state championship game and all eyes are on you, you don't get to talk to your coach between every shot.
But there's more pressure because right. But there's more pressure because it's a team.
Yep.
You understand? I mean, it's different when all your peers who you go to school with are looking at you like, don't blow this, dude.
Right.
This is a big, don't blow this.
Yeah.
There's a lot more pressure on a field goal kicker to go hit that shot.
Yep.
If he misses, he disappoints everybody on his team, all the fans, media in the local markets talking about missing that kick. There's so much more pressure in a team sport. In a local sport, if you miss or you screw up, your ball reps are disappointed.
Yep.
And you feel the worst, but that's it. That's the end of it. That's where it stops. There's far less people affected in an individual sport if you jack it up than if you jack it up in a team sport, right, Phil?
Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things, I kind of talked on Twitter the other day about this old bowler, John O'Drobnik, that kind of had beat the legends to win his first PBA title. Now McCune's kind of done the same thing. Look at Earl Anthony back in the day. If Earl Anthony wouldn't have had an injury, he was a baseball pitcher. He was pitching minor league baseball. And if he wouldn't have had an arm injury, he would never started taking bowling so seriously and gotten out on the PBA tour. It's kind of ironic how these little things in the past of the PBA cross once again, thanks to Kevin McCune.
So you've learned the lesson. Yeah. Instead of bowling as a youth, play Little League Baseball. And eventually you'll end up on the PBA tour if you just go the route of baseball and then, dabble in and bowling on the side, right? But that baseball and the bowling correlation, maybe there's something to it, Dwight.
Absolutely. It prepares. That's the biggest word that I thought of right away is after that story, it prepared him for the tour, that baseball setting.
Yep.
So sometimes you need that as an athlete. I didn't think he looked nervous at all on any of the shows.
I agree.
And Randy also made a comment. Usually the first time on TV, your insides are coming out of your outsides or whatever the comment always is. And he looked calm, cool, collected, like no big deal. I'm comfortable here. I'm ready for this type of deal. And so that mental attitude goes a long, long way to your success. Again, 90% mental, 10% physical type of deal.
The way that McCune can switch from as soon as he's off the lanes, jovial and just the relaxed personality and stuff like that. And then once he knows that 25-second shot clock comes on and it's just all business.
Changes.
It's amazing how he's developed that so young and developed it well.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't lose that type of thing, he's going to be just an absolute force to reckon with.
I love it. All right. So we got Super Slam next weekend, Phil. What's going on with the PBA and Super Slam?
Well, we got our 5 major winners. We have 4 of them. And then with Jacob Buttriff making it because the other 3 major winners were all ahead of him at the World Championship. So Buttriff gets a slide in on the wild card exemption for that. It's an interesting format next week. I mean, they win their titles. They bowled a lot of games to win those majors. But now they get to the Super Slam, and they're going to do just a draw of the hat. Who's going to bowl 1st through 5th? Each guy's going to bowl 1 game by themselves on TV. On TV. And that game score from the 1 game they're bowling on Saturday is how they're going to be seated for the step ladder on Sunday. So somebody could bowl 2 games next weekend and win $100,000.
Oof.
Yeah.
What do you think of that format, though, Sparky, by themselves? No competition.
I don't mind that.
It's like practice.
My question is, what are we doing to make it more entertaining?
Right.
That to me, as a fan, watching one dude bowl by himself, that can be all that entertaining. So what are we going to do to make it more entertaining? Are we going to let a couple of these other bowlers be mic'd up and talked about what they're seeing in the lane conditions and so forth, knowing that they're going to eventually have to bowl after this person? I'm assuming they're not redoing the lanes in between each guy, right? No. So the last guy is going to be at a distinct disadvantage, having to go out there and bowl after all these other guys have torn up the oil. The first guy is at the advantage because he gets fresh oil and gets to kind of make his pathway to a certain degree, I would think, going forward, right?
I would think more the middle guy would
guy, really?
Well, because again, Phil just talked about it, letting the pattern develop. So that first guy is going to set the tone for pattern development. So the middle guy is not going to get that early pattern development, and he's not going to get then the deterioration from the guys before him.
Yeah. A lot of it's going to be on, once again, the oiling procedure for the practice before the show. And then if they're going to re-oil right before the show starts, and what practice is it going to be? Just the one guy coming on the fresh, getting his 8 shots and then going, and then next guy gets 8 shots during a commercial break? Or are they going to let all 5 guys bowl for 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the TV show starts? Don't know what that practice session is. That's going to have a lot to do with it as well, on how those lanes develop and who's going to maybe have a little bit more of an advantage than another person.
I wouldn't. To me, you practice before you bowl. That's it. It's on the TV set. You can go down the lanes and go practice all you want. I don't care off camera.
Right.
But on the TV pair, the only person throwing warm-up shots is the guy bowling that game. That's it. Because you're just going to screw up the lanes for everybody else. If I got all these guys throwing warm-up shots before every game, like that's no. Bowl week, you're bowling game 1, you get the warm-up shots. You're bowling game 2, then that's when you get your warm-up shots. And the guy bowling last gets his before that last game. But again, how do you make it entertaining so it doesn't become monotonous and boring for somebody watching at home, watching one dude bowl by himself? There has to be something to keep this entertaining.
And that one thing, in my eyes, has to be Rob Stone and Randy on the call.
Well, obviously they're going to be on the call, but the question is, what else am I going to do?
I'm kind of hoping that they mic up a ball rep too.
Right.
I mean, for guys like, Dwight should be begging for that right now. I mean, wire
give
up
me
a
some
ball
of
rep.
that. Yes.
Right.
So wire up Dino Castillo from Brunswick, or wire up Brett Spangler from Motive. I know Saturday there was something going on Saturday because Kimberly went to go talk to the storm ball reps and they didn't talk to her. So there's something going on.
Whatever.
Something going on
but that's a great idea. You let every ball rep from a company have a game. Storm gets the first game.
Right. Over their players. Right.
Everybody every ball rep gets one game to go on TV with Stone and Peterson for a game.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine. Then everybody gets equal exposure for their product, for their company, the whole deal. Let them all have a game, and hopefully that becomes entertaining. I like having the bowler idea as well. I like that. You bowl game 1, you get to talk on game 2. You bowl game 2, you talk on game 3.
What did you see?
Right. And if you're the 5 guy, you don't get to talk at the end. So maybe you talk during game 1. You got a long ways to wait. You might as well sit there and you talk maybe on game 1. I don't know, but there has to be something other than, and if it's not Rob Stone, God help us.
Right.
It better be Rob Stone. You are right on that. Like if it's not Rob Stone, with all due respect to everybody else they put in that play-by-play booth, it's not good. Yeah, let's hope not. He is Phil Brylow at Bruce City Bowling. Dwight Albrecht at Dewey 300. I am Steve Sparky Fifer, 1250 AM, the Fan of Milwaukee. Follow us at Sparky Radio there. And don't forget, Odyssey app. Listen to the Spare Time Bowling Show each week or wherever you download your favorite podcast. And, of course, on the Odyssey YouTube, Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. Thanks for tuning in. That was our first live stream in Spare Time Bowling Show. It was a lot of fun. Tell everybody, tell your family, tell your friends. If you're looking for some PBA bowling coverage, and who isn't at this point, feel free, check it out and let us know what you think. You can tweet, like I said, at Phil or at Dwight or at myself. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. And remember, we all love him. Rob Stone.
Mm-hmm.